Bom dia.
Good morning.
Bom dia. Finalmente sentado. Isso aqui
Good
tem fone,
morning.
né? A gente está sem fone, vocês estão ouvindo. Ótimo. Plateia interativa, isso é que é bom. Bom dia a todos. Bom, gente, a gente vai ter aqui um bate-papo.
We'll
Sempre
have
um
a chit
prazer
chat
enorme para mim,
here, and it's a
pessoalmente,
great pleasure
para
for me
Circle
personally
profissionalmente,
and
para a
for
gente ter
Circle
essa conversa mais de
institutionally
cá.
having
Papos
this
íntimos,
conversation
papos
for
muito
TK.
íntimos, né? Como a gente é bastante íntimo aqui
That's
com
how
o
we
nosso
called
amigo.
Ricardo.
A gente acabou de anunciar uma
We
parceria
just
entre
announced a
Circle e
partnership
Matera.
between Circle
E
and
para contextualizar um pouco
Matera.
essa conversa, a
And
Circle
for you to have some context, Circle is an American company, technology.
infraestrutura para
They provide
Web3
infrastructure for
e
the
toda a
Web3
stablecoin.
world,
O mais
the
importante do ponto de vista
emitter or
regulatório e
issuer of
regulamentação
the
é que a
USDC.
gente está fazendo um investimento grande
And we are
na região, na América
investing
Latina. E o
massively in
bate-papo
Latin America, in
é
Brazil
justamente
particularly,
para
and we
vocês
have the
entenderem o
honor
naipe do
of
que está
entering
rolando.
into
Então a gente está aqui para fazer um
partnerships
pouco desse
with
bate-papo,
companies
falar um
like
pouco sobre esse
Matera. And we are
investimento,
here
falar
for
um
this chit
pouco
chat
do
for
motivo
you
do
to
que
get to
a
know about the
gente
goals we
no curto
have
prazo e longo
for
quer
the
que essa
short,
parceria seja
medium, and
bastante
long
duradoura.
terms
Então vou começar
because we
já levantando uma bola para a
expect a
gente poder
fruitful
introduzir isso. Eu queria te
partnership.
perguntar, Ciro, do
Let's
ponto de vista
start
da
with the
Matera,
following
vamos lá.
question.
Qual
From
foi o
the
racional para a gente estabelecer
Matera's
essa parceria?
standpoint,
Como é que a
was it
Matera olha, por
foundational to
exemplo,
establish
potencial
this
das
partnership?
stablecoins do
How do
SDC
you
em
see the
particular?
stable coins
Como é que a
and the
Matera olha para a
SDC?
Circle enquanto empresa
How do you look at
líder
Circle as a leading company
nessa indústria no mundo?
for this
E como é que você
industry in
vê
the
isso
world, and
evoluindo no
how do you
Brasil
see
nos
that
próximos
evolving
meses
in
e
Brazil
anos?
in coming months and years?
O que a gente
Good
vê
morning.
de racional é o seguinte, é
What we
colocar
see
stablecoins.
is this, is to have an accessible stable coin.
Hoje eu tenho aqui $1
Today, I
stablecoin
have
na Coinbase Wallet que eu abri com
dollars
12
in
palavras,
my
etc, etc. Qualquer um pode ter.
wallet, which
A
I
gente
open
oferece
with
uma linha
12
para quem
words.
já tem.
What we offer
Para fazer
here,
isso,
many
tem que
people have
entender
that,
o
but
que é
in
a
order to have that, we
blockchain,
need to understand
baixar
how
uma
you
wallet.
download
É
a
mais
wallet.
para cripto nerds, tá?
This is for
A gente vai
crypto
tentar
nerds.
colocar isso para o cidadão comum que
And
operar
I
um
tell you this
banco
because it's
e
not that
vai
common to
dar um
have a
recadinho,
bank
vai
and then
anunciar um
eventually
STC, vai
press
botar
a
um
button and
cartãozinho, vai
have
anunciar um
the
BRL, vai esquecer a senha
BRL
e vai ligar para o
balance
banco para
or
dizer que
in
tinha senha.
US
E o banco vai dar uma senha
or
nova.
USDC.
E ele não
And
vai
then
se
eventually you need a
preocupar, o
password
valor
and you
está
will not be
custodiado,
worried
ninguém vai
on where that's
custodiar, ninguém
going
vai
to be
confiar. Então a
custodied.
gente quer fazer
So
o telefone
we
para
want to
stablecoins,
have
enquanto hoje a gente
a
onboarda
mobile
menores
phone
para usar
for
stablecoins.
stablecoin.
Essa é uma frase do Steve Jobs, não sei o que estou inventando, tá? Dando crédito. E o que a gente vê com isso?
So what do we
Qual que é o
see?
ganho na matéria
What
ao fazer
is
isso?
the gain for
Nós temos um
Matera?
sistema de core bancário.
We
A
have
gente
a core
atende, o nosso
banking
tamanho de
system,
mercado tem a ver com
and
o número de
the size of
contas.
our market has to
Hoje a
do with
gente
the
vende o
amount of
core
accounts.
bancário
We
no
either
Brasil
sell the
com
banking
cotação em
core here in
real.
Brazil
O
with a
brasileiro que
balance in
tinha
reais.
dólar não guarda com a gente. Vai
If you
guardar lá
have
nos
a
nos Estados
balance in
Unidos.
US, you do not
A
keep
gente
it
tem que ter
here.
o custo de
That's
abrir um
done
banco
in the
aqui
US, and then you need
para
to
poder
open a
captar o
bank
valor.
account in the US for you
Agora,
to
nos
have a
próximos anos,
US balance.
ele vai guardar o saldo em dólar
And
coin
then they will keep that
nosso
in
na conta
our
de câmbio.
coin, in
E
our core
não
banking,
precisa mais ter
and they don't need
banco.
anymore to have a
Ontem eu já recebi
bank
um WhatsApp
abroad.
de um deles que está
I received a
procurando
WhatsApp
fechar o
message from
banco lá
yesterday
fora,
that is
que é líder
considering
para
to
seguir,
sell the bank
e
account
passar a
abroad
trabalhar só com o
and
SDC,
eventually just
porque o
work
custo é muito
with
caro para ele
USDC
manter esse
because it's very
banco fora do
expensive
Brasil.
for him
Então a
to
gente
just
passa a
keep
ter
that
um
bank
aumento
account
no nosso
abroad.
mercado
So we
endereçável
see
no
an
Brasil.
increase in this
Bancos brasileiros
addressable
que querem
market in
atender
Brazil. Brazilian
nossos
banks who
países
want to
vizinhos.
serve our
Então,
neighboring
o interesse
countries,
nosso é poder traduzir
a
o
client
aplicativo para
of
espanhol,
ours can
através do
translate that
Uruguai, do
using the
Paraguai,
app
para
into
poder abrir a
Spanish
conta aqui banco,
for someone who goes to
traduzir isso
Uruguay to
para o
open a
mercado
bank
lá fora
account in that
estrangeiro para
country
coisa
because that's
complicadíssima.
something you cannot
Mas não é
do
uma
for a
conta bancária,
foreigner, but
é
not a
uma conta
banking
de
account.
STC, que é um ativo
That's
digital,
a
um investimento
USDC for a
legítimo.
digital
Então,
asset.
aumenta o mercado endereçável do
So you
nosso banco
increase the
brasileiro
addressable
para
market
atender
for
ao
the
cliente
Brazilian banking
e a gente
system,
cresce com o nosso
and,
cliente.
and then we
Por
grow in
vezes, não
customers.
tem core bank para
And
o
we
seu
do not
CNPJ.
have the core banking for the
Você não tem
US.
core bank para o Canadá.
We don't have
Você não
core
vai dar
banking
saldo
for
no SDC nos
Canada.
Estados
So if you
Unidos,
want to
não
have a
precisa de core bank.
USDC for dollars in
Esse é
North
um ganho
America,
que nós temos
you
hoje.
only need the
E eu também
ledger.
habilita a gente a
So
guardar
that
saldo
also allows
USDC
us to have
fora do
the
nosso país. Da
USDC
mesma forma
balance
que um banco
abroad.
brasileiro passa a
Just as a
habilitar a gente
Brazilian
fora do
bank
Brasil,
serves
o nosso ledger
clients
também
outside
passa a atender
Brazil,
clientes
our
fora do
ledger
Brasil.
also serves
Então nós não vamos
clients
somente
outside
atender
Brazil.
o
So we need to
endereçado
have
no
a core
SDC.
banking
Vamos lá,
for
mas a gente não
the
tem core bank para usar o
USDC
ledger.
balance, and this
Então,
is
para
something we didn't
o
have in the US,
racional é
just
um
the ledger.
aumento
So
dramático
this
no
is the
mercado
rationale.
endereçável.
It's an
Então
increase in
hoje
the
a gente,
addressable
antes do
core
pagamento
market.
do Pix, no
Now, before
mês
the
de
instant
pagamento, a gente tinha
payment
lá
here in
500
Brazil,
mil
we
contas
had
na Matera. Eu tinha uma
500,000
meta de ter
accounts
5
in
milhões de
Matera,
contas em
and I wanted to
2025.
have 5 million accounts in 2025. Today we have 90 million accounts in our platform, so it's really an exponential growth. And now the goal for USDC is that we want to reach 1 billion accounts. And that's real, you know. If it was just 1 billion accounts in BRLs in Brazil, it would be insane. But when I say 1 billion accounts with USDC, that's real because anywhere can buy the software and eventually create an entity, an institution, and have the USDC. balance. So that's a vector for growth in Matera so that we can serve more the market. In the future, that's inevitable. And Brazilian banks servicing banks in Uruguay with clients in Brazil. I want to explore that a bit more. How that integration of Brazilian banks with our market would happen as of that partnership that we started creating. But before that, I would like to say that there are very interesting elements in your speech. One of them is what I want to do with Circle and the reason why I work with blockchain technology and Web3 and financial services. I believe that we have a technology before us that is incredibly efficient, incredibly accessible, fully democratic and cheap. So the penetration potential for that industry is incredible. Today we have some hurdles regarding education because that's still a complex system and it's difficult to learn. And I'm working in this for the last 4 years and as an investor, and I've been here for 7, 8 years. So this is a complex universe. You require study. But that type of partnership allows you to actually have that easily. People can use that type of technology or a tool without understanding what type of tool that is. That's the beauty of that partnership. So, tell me, how, according to your understanding, how does the go-to-market strategy work for Matera clients that eventually are going to be benefited from Circle? We have two strategies. And education. We need to explain to banks what they can do. We can say, okay, you can close your contract and your bank in the US. That's for the accounts. You can offer an account in dollars to your clients, or if you are a medium-sized bank who serves medium-sized companies that import and export, and they are not that big, and they will have an account abroad, and they work with the FX all the time, that exporter can now have an account in USDC in a medium-sized bank, which is going to help that market, and you will import, export, and supply, and you will have the bank conversion. And then you do not have the FX rates without having to pay a hedge, a cost, etc. And then they export soybeans, and then they export something else. So we need the CAPEX. And if banks here in Brazil do not understand what they can do with that, this is like a Lego brick. It's in a statue, but if I show them a piece of plastic with 6 pins, they will not understand what they can do with that. They're going to fit that into something. We need to teach people these business models, and our go-to-market is just going to be just explanation, education, and having those model businesses. And then the sales sometimes is not selling because they already have our ledger. They sign a contract with you and they start creating more accounts. And then we gain naturally because of the increase in volume. So basically we will get there and teach them. They will enter into an agreement with Circle, and then they become issuers and they will have more accounts. And then the benefit will come from the volume. And in the US, we have a credit cooperative with small banks, and sometimes they have a current account, but they do not capture anything. And that costs in terms of technology, and that costs a lot. If they create the ledger with USDC and then they convert it automatically, they will not have dollars. They do not need that core value banking. But the bank has a strategy to capture that, to prefer dollars in order to leave them there. But there are many banks, such as those fortune management banks that have trillionaires. They cannot offer a card. And the goal is not to capture account, but it's having a working instrument. So in both cases, we have a new thing, and I like to work with new things. That's part of it. Educating the market, which is what we do. I'm tired of doing that. So we need to educate the market and serve it with that offer. I believe those concepts are very nice because they have several purposes, from moving the treasury and huge amounts to having an impact on people's lives that require to move values across borders. But they only use tools today that are not good for our reality in the internet world with that speed. Now, please tell me, and then after I would like to talk about Mateus technology, which is worth our while talking about, but please tell me first, when we think about that money movement, there's one funny thing here because money may be today the only technology. Money is a technology, the only technology that in the last 500 to 600 years did not evolve essentially. It evolved in form, but in substance it did not change.
Maybe we are facing the tool set that allows for this change. This is a unique moment for us to work not only the operation, but the cultural change. As you said, the aspect of education. Let me ask you a quick question, and I would like for that question to serve as an introduction. How do you think that the concepts that this brings, blockchain, Web3, stablecoin, how does that impact people from a reputational standpoint? Do you think it still causes some type of in November, it did cause some strangeness. In March, not anymore. It's amazing how there was a change specifically in the United States. If we talked about stablecoin, now everybody wants to talk about it. Our core bank doesn't support. In Brazil as well. When you see Itaú sending SPC in personality, anybody who is skeptical says, wait a minute. When you say that New Bank 90 Bank sold SPC, you said Itaú Bank Value selling STC. All of the people say, wait a minute, I'm sleeping. For me, that's it. The strangeness ended. I'm grateful for Itaú for having done that. He gave a good example of being an old bank who is selling SPC. If there's the benefit for society in STC is the reduction of friction. Who here remembers what is a DDI, an international call? I'm already with my head in the future of STC. When I listen cross-border, I remember DDI. It's something that simply doesn't make any sense anymore. If I'm taking an STC, taking it to you, I don't know where you are. So pretty soon we will have a world where we will pay people and companies for the geographical standpoint doesn't matter. It really doesn't make sense for us to talk about movement or money on the internet era and not realize the movement of value as we now move information or data. If we think that today you don't say, I'm going to send an email cross-border. You're going to send an email. You send a message, a data package for a recipient, an identified recipient, and maybe that will be the future of the value representation in the internet era. I would like to take this opportunity to talk about the technologies you have at Matera. I would like you to explain. I'm a fan of this type of technology that you bring. I would like to hear from you. I would like to talk about the twin, the capacity that we have to structure this value movement in multi-coins and how that can impact this narrative, these partnerships that we are beginning to consolidate, and the future of the movement of money that we talk philosophically about. This is where we keep people's money, and when you take that, it's very similar that then with an IP, for example, I have an account with the central bank, I receive a transaction of 8 reais, it comes to somebody's account. This has been working like that for decades. It's the same. That's why our technology is robust. There's a custody of the circle. I sent a few reais. They do a winch, and that dollar belongs to somebody, and I register in that person's account. So basically, I will have a custody because I don't have a custody risk. It's a great service because those who work with Bitcoin know that having a custody of Bitcoin is something challenging. Yeah, I mean, if somebody steals your client's Bitcoin, you're in quite a bit of trouble. And that million is scattered around customers' accounts, and that the twin is a system that controls the money. And why is it different? If you want to work with others, it has to be 24/7. That's never stopped. Never stops, and that means that the volume of transaction is huge. Not even blockchain could handle. So our product was tested 3 years ago, and it did almost 13,000 transactions a second in 135,000 accounts. I'm not going to have one for Brazil, Uruguay, another for Argentina. No, I'm going to have one for the world. It's a Brazilian bank. If you want to open an account for any Brazilian or for any person, people around the world, if we have 300 million people, we can do it because it's a product for scale. It's going to be hyper resilient 24/7. It works with 2-3 different databases at the same time. This is a ledger which is distributed, and few banks do that. If you have a ledge in an Oracle and SQL, and you have a bug in the Oracle, it's no problem. You have 2 other databases. If you have a cluster with 3 databases along the clusters, and there's a bug, your cluster, all your cluster will fall. So we took resilience to the extreme. So we offered to our customers a mechanism of offering the amount for the client in a very performative way. It appears instantly, 1,000, 10,000 transaction in one account. It can take it. It can deal with it. So really, it's a ledger to support this new world where stablecoin is a widely spread currency, and the number of accounts that this bank can manage can be a limiting factor for that bank to operate. Just imagine and as a bonus, in reais, of course, and they can start to replicate their twin brother to the mainframe. And then he starts to do the PIX transactions because they have as they have time, and then we do the bureaucracy, the accounting. We don't need to modernize the whole bank. We just modernize that layer of user, and then they can update their mainframe without creating disruption and without having to have a new system, for example. We don't have that. It's a gradual transaction. You can begin with STC first, and then it starts using or continuing with. And it can also modernize the BRL. Let me ask you.
Cara, conversa boa passa rápido, né?
Good conversations go by quickly. We're almost at the end, but I would like to explore that a little bit further. We're talking about usage case. Maybe that's one of the most impactful things of these types of conversation. It begins very philosophical, very conceptual, but we are actually impacting people's lives, the market in a positive way. We're talking about presentation of the account in dollar, movement of trans-border payments. Is there other cases of usage that we can present and imagine where that's going? We are talking with a customer in the US that builds homes for sale, and he has a problem of how to capturing how to capture money. He's going to tokenize the home, and the advantage of using STC is he's going to have a smart contract. And having a smart contract, he's going to regulate the return of the capital. Since STC is a stable coin, is a crypto, it can be in blockchain. You can create business models where STC is in my account, or he will transfer the contact where stablecoin will stabilize something. So it opens up, and the good thing is that he will do a global operation. He's going to capture money from any citizens on planet Earth. Today, he's restricted to those people who can send the dollar, SWIFT. It's a huge friction. It's simply going to take away the friction so he can hire people because they're going to have funding. And there's several other cases like that where this thing of opening up the market to any STC owner allows you to fragment, and it increases the offer, and certainly it will reduce the cost of capital, since it will open the offer. It's gonna end up lowering the interest rates. I would have at least 250 questions to ask you because this is a very interesting and rich topic. Unfortunately, we don't have more time, but I would like to make a final comment on our part. Circle works on this space of reinventing services, financial services, for a bit more over a decade, acting specifically in the stablecoins universe, which is the age of the STC. We're very happy that today we see an educational advance, but also regulatory, that institutionalizes our conversation, our partnership, and the possibilities we have to build with a rigid governance in a way and to preserve and respect consumers' rights. So I would like to thank you for the opportunity of not only presenting but of building this partnership. I think that not only in Brazil but in the region as a whole, when we talk about this number, we're not only thinking about Brazil, where we go where they want us to go. I think that we have a lot of opportunities to do great things using this technology to impact people's lives and the environment. So I would like to thank you and congratulate you for Materials Technology and wish us both a lot of luck. I would also, I don't know if you realize, but Pix is pay by bank. STC is for pay by bank. I'm sending the money from one account to the other. So everything we're doing, STC comes and puts an amazing spice. I mean, we're not pivoting, we're not changing business, we are simply accelerating the same direction we were going with different things, but the direction is the same. Why did we choose STC? It's an American company, open capital, governance. They have a public title, it's a real dollar, audited by Deloitte every month. I don't know another stable coin that is audited every month by a consulting agency. So when we say our client has a stable coin, everybody is afraid because crypto is new, stable coin is new. There's this, but when you see, and I heard from a Matéria counselor, it was really difficult. Council is full of conservative people. Of course, it helped me in the app, and I said something about the volume of STC, and he said, of course, this one has a pedigree. So the vision of a conservative counselor, he used that term, that one has a pedigree. It is exactly that, a stable coin with pedigree. So thanks to Matéria, soon STC in a bank.